He had to. Okay, I call this meeting to order. It's 6:34. And I'll call roll call. Mayor Pro Tem Villalobos. Council Member Bunker.
Here.
Council Member Shell Allen. Council Member McLeod. Council Member Clinton.
Here.
And I am Mayor Glaze. This is going to open the, oh, I'm on the wrong page, sorry. This is going to open the public hearing and special meeting. We will stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And also to the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to the Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible. And if you remain standing for the invocation, yes, please.
Dear Lord, thank you for this opportunity to meet tonight and discuss the affairs of our little town. I pray that you give us wisdom in those discussions and decisions. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, so we're going to go right into the public hearing. This is for a new bakery where Shade's Restaurant used to be. And I see the owners are present, Showa, and what was your husband's name?
Tom.
Tom.
Yes, last name Windmiller.
Windmiller.
Yes.
Okay. And in our packet, even a week ago, I had sent out the picture of the sign. And if y'all have any questions for them?
So the application that's in front of you is for just the top sign that you see where it says Red Barn Bakery. The sign below that has already previously gone through an approval process.
Oh, the one along the highway and the rectangular?
No, the one that you see in the picture here up on the screen about the Once Upon a Time gifts and antiques.
What about the road, the sign, that's the rectangular sign?
That would also apply.
We have pictures of those. Yeah, he did have pictures of those. I mean, get them for you.
Okay.
For signage, so it's for all. We could pass them around.
Okay, so it's on under the sign that they're talking about is this square portion that's blank here, and it has the same trademark logo of the Red Barn Bakery within that blank space. And so if this is an opportunity for the public to comment on this sign for its appropriateness, and if there's no comments, then we move on.
You mean, are we the public?
Yeah. I mean, you're going to be debating it or considering it for approval in the regular session. The purpose of this portion is for the public.
Yeah, I have a question. So with the name Red Barn, it's not a red barn, but how did you come up with the name?
When I first started, Red Barn Bakery started in the Red Barn. That's where the first Red Barn was.
Oh. So this is, you already have another one somewhere. Are
It
you?
was in East Texas in Trinity.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, okay. So you moved.
Yes.
Oh, good. Well, welcome to Martindale.
So you don't want to paint the building red?
No.
Yeah, we have the barn across the street, What's- the food, what's it called? Not the food barn, but the feed barn.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
like that theme.
hamburgers, yeah.
Are you open yet?
No.
Oh, okay. Do you have an opening a day or anything planned
As
yet?
soon as we get through all of this.
Yeah. Okay.
We're just waiting.
I personally like the sign. I like the logo. The lettering is bold and easy to read. The rooster it looks good on there as well. I like it that it's, as I said, in dark, bold print, and easy to read, and I think it looks great. Yeah.
Now, is this a new sign you erected or was the, just an empty sign there?
It was there.
Yes,
All of it
okay.
was
I
there,
couldn't
so it had
remember.
the shades on it.
Yeah,
and,
okay. You just changed it up.
Painted over. Yeah.
Well, that's
Both
fine. Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the public? All right, then we might be able to adjourn this public
Okay.
hearing portion.
It is 6:39. So if we can adjourn this public hearing. And we will open the regular city council meeting. And so it is 6:40.
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
I
Do
don't
we need a motion to adjourn the public hearing?
You could.
Yes, yes, Lisa, we do.
You're welcome. I'll make a motion that we adjourn the public hearing and special meeting at 6:41.
I second.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, please say aye.
All right.
Thank you. Okay. We will now move on to the regular city council meeting. We've already called roll call. Do I need to do it again? I think we're good. Okay. So we do have some public comments. The first one that we have is Dawn Schultz. Yes. Would you like to sit where you are or come up to the podium? You have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes.
Well, I just want to reiterate from last week that we didn't appreciate a parking lot across the street due to the evaluation eventually of our home. We worked almost 12 years on, and we wouldn't want to lose property value because of that. It also reflects upon the city too, on their revenue, because if my property value drops and the revenue you make from that parking lot is almost zilch compared to what we're paying. Willingly, we know that we have to pay our way, and we gladly do that. So I don't have no animosity towards the man. I know he's trying to make a business. You can see he spent a lot of money, but I just don't believe that's in best interest of the city or of revenue for the city. That the parking lot would serve the whole city, not just a tubing company that pays no revenue at all to the city. Thank you.
Thank you. And Karen Schultz?
Yeah, I didn't have too much more to say other than what I said last week, but I just kind of feel, well, I really kind of see that if, I don't know if the city could possibly help this man. He's got a nice piece of property. It's very visible. And I keep thinking, like a doctor's office, a lawyer's office, a CPA's office, a dental's office, anything. I mean, he'd get a lot of, whoever opened up a business there would get a lot of street traffic coming in because it's so visible. And I just, I'm thinking of, someone had mentioned a while back about like putting up a sign or something at the post office. I'm thinking, couldn't we do something like that to help him come up with a business? I didn't mean to sound like I was totally complaining last week without coming up with some kind of solution for this situation. I mean, apparently the man bought that property to invest and make money on. But it would be nice if it was something that everybody in the community could use, like a doctor's office or, CPA. Everybody has to pay their taxes. So everybody's got teeth, so a dentist's office, and something like that, that would be like a 9 to 5 job that wouldn't be kids screaming and drunk out in front of my house. We didn't get into talking too much about, somebody said that he was planning on having a business of his own there. I saw like 3 electric poles there, and I kept thinking, well, did the electric company do that in lieu of thinking like 3 businesses would open? I don't know. I don't know what the electric company, but there's 3 poles with wires coming down on the property, and I didn't think that was real safe for it to be a parking lot kind of thing. And then I started even thinking about the tubing company until Highway 110 got opened up. I didn't realize there's so much vast land open that, I mean, the tubing company, why couldn't they purchase some land there and make a parking lot there? Because it wouldn't be that far away from their business, and they might even want to just, if they bought some land there, would want to move their whole business there, and then they wouldn't be using Martindale's road at all. I don't know, those are just some of my other thoughts on the issue. And I'm just, I don't know how this all works. I've never done this before. Come before people and talk like this. And I don't know if you vote on it. I mean, I don't know what the procedure is at all. I just knew that
We do
had to-
have it on the agenda later tonight to discuss, but during public comments, we can't make any comments back,
Oh, okay.
but we will be discussing it the last thing on the agenda.
Okay. Well, that's about all I had to say. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you. Okay, is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comments? Okay. I do not have a mayor's report. So we will move on to item 4A, discussion and action approving a certificate of appropriateness application for signage and bakery out on the highway where Shades used to be. And it's located in the scenic corridor. Does anyone have any discussion about this? Any further discussion?
I would like to make a motion to accept the certificate of appropriateness application for signage and for the bakery in the city's Martindale Scenic Corridor as
I'll
submitted by
second
Red Bond Bakery.
I'll second that.
And we've rolled the sign into this too, so, okay. Okay, thank you, Lisa.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay,
I have a question about, I noticed on this one with the sign with the light on it, is that light on a timer, or will it always be shining on that sign, or?
At night, yes, it's always shining.
Okay. Um,
Do you anticipate a problem with that?
That's a good question, Sam, if I may, for just a moment, Mayor. For the owners of the Red Barn Bakery to be aware that the city of Martindale, by resolution, has adopted to become a night sky city. And so there may be some issues, and I'm certain that our city administrator can help guide you through that in regards to the light only being a certain amount of lumens as well as directionally down versus up.
Yeah, the resolution, as I understand it, basically sets out a preference. It's basically a statement by the city council expressing a preference to be a night sky friendly community. We do not have that in the ordinance at this point, so there's no regulation, but if you guys are willing to consider that, I'd work with you on getting you the the technical specifications that would comply.
Definitely.
Yeah, because then on the rectangular sign that's on Highway 80, does that have lighting on it as well? I'm sure it possibly does.
Yes.
Do you know the direction of the light, or is it on top of the sign pointing downward, or
It's inside.
it's what?
Inside.
It's like a neon?
It's backsliding.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Thank you.
But we have the ability to turn it off.
I think we had a picture of that passing around of the rectangular sign.
Yeah, it's right over there.
Oh. you want to say it?
So is the light illumination on the rectangular sign, do you think that's possibly less intense than the sign, than the light on the oval sign?
Yes.
And no neon, no open signs, no neon, any other neon signs that say open or any of those such things? Okay.
If we wanted to do so, is that something that you guys would not?
I suggest we discuss that individually if you when that comes around, we can look at that.
Options of Open signs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any nays? And Lisa, you said aye?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the motion carries. Okay, moving on to the next item. We have discussion and action on an interim chief of police. And we have a gentleman here tonight as Tommy Ward. And so we will introduce him. And if you have any questions, we are open and ready for them.
So as a way of introduction, Mr. Ward has, prior to coming to the city before you tonight, he's had an extensive career with the Comal County Sheriff's Office, and he works for the Texas Family and Family Protective Services, where he's been there since leaving the sheriff's office. He's previously served as a police officer on our police force for a couple of years, and he currently serves as a reserve officer for other cities.
Well, I appreciate you doing this, being our interim chief.
Yes.
I know it's probably a different load, additional load for you, but I can't tell you how much, at least I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you.
Jared, so I just wanted to know, like, as far as like, is there any documentation, like, is he gonna be on a contract? Like, where are the, hey, Mike, Tardy? Just kidding.
That's
You're here, you're here. And
Under the local government code, you can dock $3 from the.
Oh, dock it from my salary.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was the question?
it's just, like, is there any documentation or any contract that he has to sign to come in with the city, or what's?
Yeah, so the mayor and I have gone through an extensive background vetting process that included obtaining references from prior employers, a personal history statement review, and other requirements set out by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement.
Mhm.
Once that appointment is made, that will be submitted to TCOL, is the name of that is an acronym for that organization. Pending the approval of being appointed the interim police chief, he'll be given a salary. We can discuss the salary tonight if you choose. And we're going to give him an offer letter that would cover him as a police chief or as a police officer, at the rate that we pay our other police officers, and then while serving in the role of interim police chief, commensurate with those duties at a higher pay rate. That is reflective of the job announcement you'll see later tonight and what we've paid our police chief in the past.
So
There-
the contract will include,
There's no contract that there's being envisioned for this position. It's purely an offer of employment and appointment by the city council. If there's a discussion on contract, we can enter into one if we choose, but our intention is to, speak on behalf of the mayor, is to have this be an interim, a temporary appointment, and go through and a hiring process to hire our full-time or full police, chief of police. Did that answer your question?
Yes, so this, since we don't have any like paperwork, before us, is this going to be like an at will, or is it like?
It's governed under the local government code, chapter and verse. I'm sure Kent has it in front of mind.
Yeah, so what it'd be, he's not technically an employee. He's appointed as an officer of the municipality. Mayor makes the appointment. After the mayor makes the appointment, a member of the council makes a motion to accept the appointment. That motion seconded, the council votes. At that point, you would then have, be sworn in to the office of chief of police, and would then serve as an officer of the city, subject to removal as provided by the local government code, which would be the,
4/5 or 2/3.
that's right.
and we are going to be going through over the ordinances tonight.
Yeah, so the future agenda items related to the chief of police position include later on is the job description and the recruitment brochure for hiring the eventual chief of police. And there's also for discussion, some modifications to our officers and employees ordinance that capture some of those duties more completely.
So, we had a contract before with our former chief of police. And
Well, this is interim.
So
there's no contract is
There's no
required, that we just follow the ordinance.
Right. So as an example, I don't currently serve under a contract. I serve under as Kent mentioned, the appointment and removal rules governed by the Texas local government code.
I got it now.
Let's see, so with him working full-time at another position, what will be the process now in terms of communication to the chief of police at times of the day, say, or is he accepting calls all the time, or is he on voicemail, or how will calls be funneled towards him during the process of being in interim and being working full-time at
It
somewhere
calls
else?
like a call for services, like if someone makes a complaint, they need a police officer to come arrive. So the way that process would work, similar to what we have now, is we recommend people, if you're in a situation of emergency, dial 911. If you are not in an emergency, call the county dispatch number, which is provided on our website, right there on the front page on the left-hand side. Call that non-emergency number, and they will dispatch a law enforcement officer to come to your location to handle the situation. If we do not have a police officer on duty, whether it's Tommy or any of other officers, typically the sheriff's office, sometimes maybe the constable will take that call and address the situation. If there's additional reporting requirements on the city, the interim police chief or an officer would take that reporting requirement and handle the case from there if needed. And that's something that the interim police chief could look at doing, is updating that interlocal agreement with those organizations for that coverage. Make sure that all the I's are dotted, T's are crossed, and there's a clear process procedures relating to those types of calls.
So would he be formulating the schedule for the other officer we have currently? He'll be saying,
hiring police officers, appointing reserve officer positions, all the duties and responsibilities of the police chief, he would be responsible.
and so he'll be giving, say, the scheduling to the mayor. And so if the mayor gets a call and they say, someone calls is concerned and said, well, who's going to be here on Tuesday at such and such a time, then she can
Well,
relate that to the person,
It
or
would-
would they?
it would go back to what Jared said about if you have an emergency, you call 911. If you don't have an emergency, then you call the number that's on our website, just like we've always done.
I'll quickly show everybody how to get there because it's important. So if you're at Google Martindale, Texas, city of Martindale, it'll show up right here on top, their first return on Google. Go ahead and click on it. Here's our city homepage. Right here on the left-hand side, the non-emergency dispatch phone number is 512. Here, I'll see if I can zoom in a little bit. 512-398-6747. So they would call that number, and that dispatch would know who's on duty, who's not, and they would send a responding officer, whether it's from our police department or from the county's resources.
Not everybody more.
Pardon me?
What was the
Not
comment?
everybody has an internet in Martindale.
Can we put it on our bill, on the?
We can
utility
start putting it on the bill.
bill? About that, put it on the utility bill?
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Albeit these questions are absolutely important. However, I think in order for us to stay on track, I would like to make a motion that we accept your appointment of Tommy Ward as interim police chief, effective immediately.
Thank you.
I second that.
Just to be
Wait a
clear,
minute,
you
you
made that
haven't
appointment,
made-
didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I have made
Well,
that
why don't you
appointment.
verbally say, yeah?
I-
would like to point.
Oh, okay.
I make the appointment for municipal police chief, municipal officer, police chief as to be Tommy Ward,
The interim.
the interim police
or
chief.
chief of police, yeah,
And my motion stands. And my motion stands.
your second.
Yes.
I'll second, well, okay, I'll second it, so.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
If I could ask a question,
Yes.
does Mr. Ward have a plan for his appointment for the city? If he sees things need to be adjusted or moved around?
We're not taking public comment.
Well, we will probably be discussing that with him, but yeah.
I didn't know.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion?
I have one more thing I have to ask. So I know, previously, whenever you were with us and your service is so greatly appreciated, that he was with us throughout, according to how his job, how he works the other jobs. But with this being is it a full-time position?
Yes, our expectation that he's going to continue, he'll serve in a full-time capacity, but it may not be Monday through Friday.
Gotcha. Okay.
Would it be most likely weekends,
That's what
Which-
that's essentially what that would turn into.
which we typically have more issues on the weekends, typically, is that correct? I mean,
And he handled the weekend shift admirably for a long time for the Martindale.
okay.
So does the other chief kind of be available during, the other chief, the other officer be available during the day?
He has a other full-time employment during regular business hours, Monday through Friday. And so we'll still be coordinating with our other local law enforcement agencies to provide the coverage during those hours when we don't have our own officers operating. Now, we also understand that we are operating currently at a deficit of our total allowed staffing level. So there will be opportunities as he takes this role as interim chief of police to hire additional officers or adjust the staffing to as needed. So
Do we know since, well, we'll talk about the car later, I guess, but we do have one vehicle that's up and running and
We have 2 vehicles,
two.
and then we have the third one that we'll be finishing the purchase on.
Okay, so we'll try and quick step on the other vehicle that we're gonna purchase.
yeah, that's going to be discussed at a future agenda.
Okay. Interim meaning, until the 6-month process, possibly 4 to 6 months that we've detailed in the timeline to hire another chief.
Yes.
And then he might be retained or whatever into the future, but this is to ensure the public that we have some coverage and someone with experience and knowledge to assist us in the affairs of the city.
Yeah, the intention of this is to appoint a municipal, Tommy Ward, in the position of chief of police as an officer of the city of Martindale, to carry all the duties, responsibilities thereof or therein.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. It's now time to vote. Mike McLeod, how do you vote?
Yes.
Jan Bunker,
Yes.
Sonia,
Yes.
Sam,
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes, ma'am, as the motion was made.
Okay, and the motion now carries. Thank you. Okay, we are now ready for the swearing in.
Right. All right, Mr. Ward, raise your right hand. Repeat after me. I, Tommy Gerald Ward Jr., do solemnly swear and affirm
Tommy Gerald Ward Jr., do solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas
and the Constitution and laws of the state of Texas
and all local ordinances of the city of Martindale,
and all local ordinances of the city of Martindale.
and that I will faithfully and impartially perform
I will faithfully and impartially perform
and discharge the duties
and discharge the duties
of an interim chief of police
of an interim chief of police
for the city of Martindale,
for the city of Martindale,
according to the law and best of my ability.
according to the law and the best of my abilities.
All right, congratulations. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Oh, you have your suit? Your suit.
Oh, I thought you had to see it.
Oh, your suit. Yeah, your suit.
All right.
Okay, we will move on to item 4C, discussion and action approving the chief of police job description and recruitment brochure.
So in advance of this meeting of the read aheads, as I provided on Thursday, I hope that each of the council members had an opportunity to review them. Apologize in advance, I did not get them out sooner, but rest assured, I worked late into the night to make sure I got them in. So go ahead, and we'll start with let's go ahead and start with the job description. And I'll pull that up on the screen here, and then we can, given that most of you have likely seen this already, I'll just kind of leave it up for questions and discussion where needed, or where desired.
I'm kind of glad the little description of the city.
Yes, that's something we,
Is this, did you follow some other kind of brochure?
So on the job description, this is it's loosely based on a template that we previously have used for other positions. I modified it some for this announcement.
Did you have a previous description that you also worked off of?
So
Did you compile all this yourself?
I compiled all this myself. I used other references of other chief of police job announcements published in Texas and elsewhere, and plagiarized where it made sense and modified where it made better sense.
Very detailed.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
So one of the things I was sharing with the mayor earlier and the other day is in these job announcements, you can often see that cities have probably about 80 to 90% of all the job descriptions are nearly the exact same, minus some, tweaks and wordsmithing and happy to glad thesaurus type changes. The rest of it, you can kind of get a sense of what is important to that city for that position. So some of the examples I looked at were Pflugerville and San Marcos, who recently completed their hiring process for their own chiefs of police. You could see in those cities a slight distinction in what their focus areas were. So like Pflugerville, they could tell that they're really looking for somebody who would embrace the diverse and growing community that they had, be very much in the public sphere, a person first leader who was able to take on the policing environment of today, a lot of the cultural change that's happening for the better. The San Marcos similarly, but also they were really focused on somebody who had, a solid law enforcement career and could connect with the city citizens in a kind of a more formal language. I also looked at some smaller cities and took some lessons that they had. And what I thought was needed in ours to kind of what's the message between the lines is we need a police chief that will not only do the administrative duties and provide the leadership qualities that are needed in that position, but also primarily do the patrol officer duties as well, and try to capture those in the duties description.
One thing I noticed here about enforcing the ordinances, let's see, federal, state, and county and municipal laws and ordinances are enforced. What would be an example of some of the ordinances? Would those be some such as relating to abandoned vehicles or buildings or?
Yeah, we'll get into there's all the ordinances have some, if there's an enforcement function, many of them have some nexus to the chief of police doing that enforcement, as it's laid out in our officers and employees' duties. Some of those being code enforcement. So in our current ordinance regarding the duties of the chief of police or the description of that office, code enforcement has a responsibility provided to the chief of police. So things like nuisance vehicles, overgrown lots, excessive noise, those sort of items would be part of those law enforcement duties as an ordinance.
So he could like go out and if we have to put a notice on a property that says, you need to cut your grass or clean up your garbage in front of your place, would he physically be the one going out there and putting the ordinance on the property?
There's a couple, so in general sense, yes, and there's a process and procedure that ordinance lays out that either has hand delivery or certified mail. Only in some exceptions do we just pass a sticker and call it a day. But to your point, yes, he would be the person, or as he might delegate, a patrol officer serve that notice.
So basically, the duties here is what are the new things added to the ordinance.
Yes, so as we,
I think it's great.
so the job duties that you see here, listed out in bullet format,
Mhm.
those are copied and pasted into an update to the Chapter 31 Officers and Employees Ordinance relating to this position.
Which we'll be discussing after this.
Yeah. And the intent of that was to more completely describe that position in our ordinances, not just on a job description announcement document.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the chief of police job description and recruitment brochure.
So yeah, we can continue with that. If there's any discussion on the recruitment brochure, I'm happy to go through that as well. The recruitment brochure,
This is what it's really gonna look like, right?
yeah, well, that's black and white, but it's really going to look like that.
Let me just ask about this advanced technical operation principles of crime prevention, law enforcement, and criminal investigation work.
Can I interrupt you just a
Yeah.
minute? So we had a motion. Do we have a second? And then we can continue
Okay.
discussion. Is there a second to the
I'll second it.
motion?
I'll second it, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, now we can
Yeah.
continue with discussion.
So the knowledge of, but does it say about having the knowledge of dealing with guns or certifications? Where is the thing about certifications and all that?
That's actually when we did background checks and all of that kind of stuff through TCOL and TCLATs, and they are required by those organizations to have certifications using their gun.
Yeah, they would not be able to maintain their certification, but if you want that to be included, we can just as easily include it here, but it is part of their licensing requirements.
Knowledge of ability, would that be more of a ability, or that's actually a minimum? Well, it does have here in the minimum requirement, law enforcement officer certification, TCOL. It seems like it's covered here in the certification aspect of the minimum requirement. Now that I see that now.
Yeah.
That was a good question, yeah.
I would note that, just for the benefit of the whole council, the compensation that's listed on the job announcement is listed as 50,000 plus or minus. I did use data that's published by the Texas Municipal League and identified other similar sized cities within the Austin, San Antonio region as TML makes those regions. Disregarding extreme outliers on the high and the low, the average was 52,000. And our this compensation level is commensurate to what we've previously paid our
How about having something saying that the ability to live, or I guess, live within a certain amount of miles and within the city? I mean, it is nice when we have law enforcement that lives close by. Of course, housing stock in Martindale is very limited and few and far between, but
if we were a larger city, I think it would make a lot of sense for municipal officers to live within the city they serve. But the size of Martindale, I think that would be difficult. If you want to create a radius requirement, you definitely could. I think the chief of police position is unique enough in its responding duties that there could be some benefit to the government in having that person live within a certain radius. It's something that you could definitely consider.
I would just like to add something. So I think like one thing that we need to start trying to just like make sure to put an emphasis on is that with this position, I as a citizen am not expected to have the chief of police cell phone number to call him directly to come over to my house when an incident arises. I think like all citizens being in the community of Martindale need to be like every other citizen in underlying areas and go through the protocol, what is expected to be done. For an emergency, call 911. For a non-emergency, utilize the number that's given to you for, and if it is a non-emergency and you do call 911, they'll direct you to where you need to go. But we need to just work away from expecting to call somebody's cell phone number, personal cell phone number, or a cell phone to have them come to our house. We
When
need,
the chief of police gives you their card with their phone number on it, it says, call me if there's a problem, okay? Wrote cell phone on it, I called him. That's why I called him that Saturday morning when the guy had a knife to my neck, okay? That's why I called, because he told me to. Not because.
I'm not talking about that right now, sir, with what happened to you. I'm talking about what happened in the
general.
future. Yes, not your incident.
So, any more discussion on the idea of requiring a radius for this person to live within?
You know, I personally would like to see that whoever is chosen for chief not to live more than, I don't know what the mileage, what the radius would be specifically, but if it takes you more than 20 minutes to get to the department, it could be too far. So I also think that that our interim might have the opportunity to weigh in on how he thinks, based on his experiences in the past, how he thinks that might need to look like.
I don't know if he's here.
He's no longer here.
Okay.
What?
But can I make it? Personally, my opinion is I kind of would hate to have too much restrictions that's going to keep us from getting a qualified candidate. So, you know, if we can get somebody that lives in Austin and can get here when they're, you know, when they're scheduled, I'm fine with it. Now, I might have a problem if they use their police car for transportation. But other than that, as long as they show up for their job on time, I don't see us having to.
Yeah, that's something.
There's going to be some commute. I mean.
Yeah, that's something we can negotiate too when it's
Right.
fine.
You know, if maybe if they get settled in and it's a good fit, you know, they may end up moving closer. So, and they're on a probationary period for a year, right? Am I correct?
That's right.
And 8 years of full-time progressive law experience.
So that 8 years that's listed in our brochure
Law enforcement.
as a typical ways to qualify.
Or
The minimum qualifications that we have is 4 years of experience in a supervisory or command level position as a minimum. So that there is something we said that it's a little bit of a champagne taste on a Schlitz budget, but
yeah.
it's one of those things that where would the line to be drawn, I figured to ease more onto asking for more and going from there.
It seems reasonable.
And you have a bachelor's degree from an accredited college or university. You don't want to get somebody that might have an associate degree in public administration, but it's been a police officer for 8 years. I mean, that's
The things you have,
kind of standard. Do most police officers have a degree in?
regular police officers typically they can qualify with just a high school education. I think that for the position of chief of police, given the administrative duties, and especially when it comes to our expectation that they participate and write grants, submit grants, a bachelor's degree is a way that certifies a credential that they know how to write decently, you know, for those things.
And a master's officer and instructor certifications are preferred over cut.
all of the things that are listed here are really important and I believe pretty standard.
Well done.
Yeah.
Very well done.
He sent the draft to us at 4 a.m. a couple of days ago.
I'm glad we picked you, Jared. You did good work.
It would have come at 3 a.m. if Versio wasn't restarting my computer without warning at 1:30
Oh.
and 3 o'clock.
How
You're
are you?
here at 4 in the morning?
That's right.
Oh my God.
You've done a great job, Jared. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And
I wanted to make sure you weren't getting this on a Saturday afternoon. This is important enough that it was worth spending the time that you had opportunity to review this ahead of the meeting.
And then Versia is not your baby's name. That's your computer. It is your baby didn't give you a.
It's our IT people.
Yes.
Support system. I did all I could to keep from using choice 4-letter words in my email to them.
Yeah.
Asking them to stop. You started my.
Mayor, we have a motion in a second. Is that correct?
Oh, I just have one last question. How will we be keeping track of his whereabouts or when he's here and when he's not? Do we have time cards or punching in or how do we do that?
Some of that we can, well, here's my expectation, that the chief of police can conduct themselves as a chief of police and know and be responsible enough to set their own schedule to meet the needs of the community. If the city council wants to dictate what that schedule is, they surely can. We can also do that through an performance appraisal review process where those goals are identified and measured against performance, but may not be a requirement that we include in the ordinance or in a job description.
And now that he's been
And let me
hired,
give a little insight.
yes, Lisa?
Yes,
Go
ma'am,
ahead,
thank you. And let me
Lisa.
give a little insight to that. Yes, ma'am. And let me give a little bit of insight to that. As much as we as a council and or administratively like to know when our officers are on duty and when they are not, and who, all of that is important for us to know. However, I feel like we need to be mindful that that particular information as far as a schedule is not something that's completely posted and or public knowledge. And here is why. We're all good people. We're not necessarily the bad guys. However, there are some. And if in fact the word gets around, oh, there's no one on duty from this time to that time, that then creates a window. We don't think like that, but other people do. And so to reiterate, as much as we want to know, which is perfectly, I think, fine, we should be able to know if we so chose, but not in a public forum such as this. Just my opinion.
Thank you, Lisa. Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
he was explaining to me that his first order of business would be to get a full-time day officer. So he's already thinking about how he's going to conduct this job, and I'm very, very excited to have him on board. So we'll be talking to him a lot in this next week and so forth. Okay, so we have a motion on the table and a second to approve this brochure. All in favor, please say, and the job description. And the job description. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, I didn't hear any nays. The motion carries.
Unanimous.
And it's unanimous.
Good in a row.
Okay, we will now go into discussion only items. And that first one is the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 31.
All right. So chapter, oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. That's what I was wanting to hear from you.
So chapter 31, the city's this is the chapter which outlines the duties and responsibilities of the governing body and the officers of the city. So that includes the governing body, those that are elected, and then also those that are appointed and confirmed by the city council. So the changes under review for tonight are in two areas. They are the foremost, the chief of police description, powers and duties, and also the city administrators powers and duties. So in this document, the current version that you see here has not been codified with our publishing organization. So this is likely different than what people would see on our website. However, if you go into our officers and the ordinances by year, you'll find this that it was approved in 2018. So we're working off the most recent copy here. Those areas that you see in red, if you have a color version or if you're using the black and white, anything that's underlined is what's been added. Anything that is has a strike through has been deleted. And so the description of the powers and duties of the chief of police, the initial section remains the same as it was written. And then the general duties are copied and pasted from the job description that you just approved, and including that within the ordinance that describes those powers and duties of the position. So I would not expect any much conversation on this section, as it's language that was already reviewed.
I would like to comment or maybe discuss a little bit on 10, prepare and review of a variety of administrative reports, correspondence, and other written material. Direct the preparation and maintenance of police files, records, and reports. Review and advise written policies based on legislative changes, court decisions, and city council directives. So I'd like to know how much has that been done in the past? I mean, that has been done. How much of that is public information and or information privy to this council?
So
that can be reviewed. Because
different files have different, are subject to different open records requests.
Right.
Some of them are subject to different, criminal proceedings or investigative proceedings. So it would that would not yet public or whatever. There would likely, as you get into this, there's different laws that govern it.
I think the best answer at this point would be the city, there's different record keeping requirements for different types of records, and the city of Martindale has diligently and accurately followed the record keeping requirements of the state of Texas. And I think we can discuss this at a later point, but I think it's best to look at this moving forward at this point, not looking backward, and we can discuss that later.
But still,
There's a record that you are interested in reviewing, let me know, and I will consult with Kent and on whether that's releasable depending on the record type.
I had a question about number 12, perform animal control and code enforcement functions and other duties as assigned. We had some previous discussions about possibly adopting an interlocal agreement with the county on animal enforcement. I don't know if we would still want to consider pursuing that. I mean, if you look at all of these things that the staff or the chief is supposed to do, it is a lot. It is a lot. And I think that in the past, we possibly had a lot of assignments and things for the law enforcement to do, but that we may have discovered that they weren't properly trained or perhaps didn't have all the equipment necessary to, say, enforce animal control by having cages or leashes or ways to apprehend animals and all that. So, I mean, this is a nice document and all that, but I mean, I just feel like we have had some discussions about interlocal agreements with the county to help us with animal control.
Yeah, so the city may at some point in time, if there's an extremely vicious animal, lack the resources to overtake and capture that animal, and it may require the assistance of either Caldwell County or potentially San Marcos Beach or Hayes County Sheriff's Office. But I think the idea is that under the Code of Ordinances, there are ordinances that relate to the way that animals must be controlled. And having the authority to enforce the codes generally, the chief of police would also have the authority and the obligation to enforce the Code of Ordinances as it relates to controlling animals and making sure that they're not loose and the Code of Ordinances being violated.
So there are specific, when you dock animal control, code enforcement, there are certifications and professional standards that in order to be an animal control officer, code enforcement officer, and those sort of things do require additional training and certification. That's not what this is requiring. This is requiring, as Kent said, performing general duties as required in the areas of animal control and code enforcement.
So what Jared's mentioning is under Texas law, under the occupations code, if one wants to be a quote, code enforcement officer, unquote, they must take a test, meet certain certification standards, and then only after doing that can they be a code enforcement officer. Now, that being said, someone under the law can enforce the Code of Ordinances, but they just can't refer to themselves as a code enforcement officer without having that certification. But they can enforce the codes and say, I am the individual that enforces the codes for Martindale.
So real quick, Lisa, are you still with us? I think.
Yes, I am, but I need to bow out and just wanted to let that be known. Is that all right?
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. So the line of the code enforcement functions on 12 is the code enforcement functions that relate to animal control.
Or the code.
Or any code.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So the city has discretion to say that the chief of police will assist in issuing citations for violation of the Code of Ordinances, be it speeding ticket or be it a dangerous building, however the city decides to handle that.
I think it's a little confusing in that if it's item 12 and you have animal control and code enforcement functions, it's almost make it seems like it's solely the code enforcement functions that relate to animal control. If it's in that same sentence, it would seem like you would, if you're talking about all the codes and ordinances, that should be a line item in itself, other than associating it with animal control.
I can remove the capitalization of those words that make it more clear,
Or maybe say.
or reverse the order, code enforcement and animal control functions. That way the adjectives.
The code enforcement is more paramount than the animal control portion of it. I don't know, but looking at
Or
that,
include.
I would think you would need more clarification to know what codes and I mean, because we're talking about, usually when we talk about codes, we're talking about ordinances, and that's in the same sentence, code and ordinance.
A lot of times code enforcement has to do with buildings and public nuisances and some of those things.
Yes.
Well, if you can put it first, maybe as you say, reverse it, then it won't make it seem like the code enforcement that you're referring to is the part that relates to animal control, and that it's all code enforcement. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
I'm willing to make that change. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, just reverse it perhaps or something.
Okay.
Perform code enforcement and animal control. That's all I got so far.
Okay. Any other discussion on the chief of police duties? All right. So the next item that's included for the discussion tonight are the powers and duties of the municipal administrator, the city administrator's position. So a lot of the summary of these changes in some ways strengthens the administrator's position to oversee or at least coordinate the activities of other municipal officers that are appointed and confirmed by the city council. And we'll get into how that, some of the wordsmithing that goes into that. The first one replaces a line that the city administrator shall be responsible for the governing body of the proper administration of the affairs of Martindale, and replacing the words not otherwise delegated to other officers and the coordination of activities delegated to other officers. That change provides further clarity, I think, for this position to as it relates to the city clerk, city accountant, municipal secretary, municipal treasurer, chief of police, and others, where there's the judge, where the crossover of affairs happen. Right now, with that wording, it kind of siloed things, I feel like. And this it's a small change, but I think cuts down the silos. Another add under the general duties is serving as the principal advisor to the mayor and the performance of his or her duties as appropriate. That's a function that I largely perform currently, but especially while we continue under a mayor council form of government, the position of the city administrator is in support of the mayor in a lot of those executive functions. So I felt like it was appropriate to identify that relationship. The other changes within that section of general duties included those other municipal officers as working closely with them. So the municipal clerk, accountant, attorney, judge, engineer, chief of police, and other staff to coordinate, but also manage the following, which included some wordsmithing. Most of it just clarified some terms: municipal elections, contracts and discussions with vendors on behalf of the city, annual budget and tax rates, permitting and code enforcement, the city's website and public communications, and then also included municipal utility services, customer accounts and billing, and operations and maintenance of the city-owned or leased properties, facilities, assets, equipment, including parks and utility infrastructure. So I think this more completely describes the duties that I feel I'm responsible for and should continue on beyond me. I win the lottery, move across the way, get a fancy house on the lake, and just drive my speedboat for the rest of my life. And then I added a new section in this ordinance regarding management. Some of this language existed in prior iterations of the officer and employee's duties as it related to the city administrator. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's there. What this does essentially is further clarifies those management responsibilities in terms of the coordination of city departments, being able to delegate duties to officers and employees as needed, establishing the organizational structure of the city and making hiring decisions based on approval of the city council, disciplining and removing city employees except those that are appointed and confirmed by city council. And probably the biggest change on here is conducting performance evaluations of municipal officers and employees at least annually for the review by the mayor and approval by the city council. Currently, in many respects, there is requirements for annual performance reviews, but nobody really assigned to do it other than the city council assigning it to itself. My observation has been as somewhat difficult for a governing body to do that. It's much easier if somebody takes the lead to at least make a recommendation to the governing body on those evaluations. And so I think it would be appropriate for the city administrator to basically rate employees and officers subject to the mayor's review and then approval by the city council
On an annual basis.
So
on an annual basis.
there is a comment that shouldn't that be the mayor? And I do not agree with that because there's a brand new mayor every 2 years.
It's always been the mayor.
Oh, it's always been mayor.
I've always gotten it by the mayor.
Yeah, I would agree with Jared on this point because he's already been here for 2-3 years. And he's gonna know this staff better. So if there's some continuity and there is a different mayor every 2 years, it would be better to have someone with the continuity doing the reviews.
And it has in there with the mayor's
Approval,
approval, so.
yeah.
The chain of command
So
relationship.
in other words, they could put their 2 cents, you want the mayor's 2 cents in the evaluation.
Like if I said Kent did a great job and the mayor looks at that performance evaluation for the year and said, he did a okay to good job. I don't know if he did a great job. That would then go to city council and the city council would say, all right, the city administrator, his initial rating was great. The mayor's good, okay. City council as their final decision for the evaluation is, And so Kent gets a, for his performance.
Oh dear.
Gets that's generally how it would work, but it'd be for all officers and then employees, that employee's standpoint. Likely it's just a rubber stamp.
And then who does the review for the city administrator?
That's up to y'all.
I think like.
That'd probably be the mayor.
Yeah, I think it should be.
Or I'll do it by,
Led by the mayor, but,
Well, I was thinking the city attorney.
there we go.
and who does the judge?
Or you could do a 360 evaluation, but the those being rated be the raters.
So what I've seen also, it's like done, like with the council, it's like an evaluation sheet is sent out to everybody and it's like a rating for 1 through 5, and then everybody is able to turn it in rather than it be done by, one person and the mayor. Whoever has like interactions or, it's.
Yeah, I would think that whoever's doing the evaluation is going to get input from the rest of the
Yeah.
staff.
So is the
That's what I
judge
think.
considered a municipal officer, or is that
Yeah.
just the,
Yes.
the judge?
So everybody's under your umbrella?
Right.
Oh, okay.
The
Is
judge,
the
Well-
judge and
Well,
the
so I would not be able to direct the judge on how to be a judge or
Right.
direct the attorney on how to be an attorney.
Right.
But I would coordinate, or the chief of police on how to be a chief of police. There would be, likely what would flow from this would be a internal policy that I would write for the city council to consider that would describe evaluation criteria, often based off of an annual goal setting or some other method that they would be then rated against. So in many places of employment, especially when you're getting to management roles, you're going to be rated based off your goals and whether you've succeeded expectations or not. And so they're going to basically rate themselves and go from there.
This is a very, you want to make it easy for the affairs of the city to run. And, I mean, I can look at this and I can see a lot of good in it. And if you got someone nefarious in Jared's position, then I can see how someone would abuse it. I mean, it's the same thing with me. But there is merit in giving the city administrator the authority to, on a daily basis, say, Dwayne, Sylvia, Kim, we got to get X done. And then allow X to get done. And that's, I mean, that's a lot of what this does, is it allows Jared to say, pick up the phone and say, hey, Kim, we got a problem. Can you help us fix this problem without going back to council? Yeah.
And in the ordinances, each officer has their own description. So you would be evaluating them on what the ordinances say.
Right, all right.
So there
now-
are checks and balances.
Okay, now I'm confused because not every officer has a contract.
So contract does not,
He's on a contract now, and I thought the chief of police had a contract, but that's not true.
But you don't have to have a contract.
You can choose to have a contract?
Well,
That's correct.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
most people serving in my position would have one. I haven't felt the need to at this point, because if I was a full-time employee,
Yeah,
or officer of the city, I most assuredly would. But given that it's a part-time type of a role, I
right,
haven't felt the need. And really, my position is, because of the confirmation, appointment, and removal procedures under our ordinances and city laws, I haven't really felt the need for one to this point.
okay. And so, and the judge, he's full-time, does he have a contract? And Sylvia, right?
They've all been appointed now. The judge is different. The judge serves a 2-year term that runs consistent with the term of the mayor.
So so I had 90 days if I wanted a different judge,
Oh,
to appoint a different judge.
oh, okay,
But you don't have to.
right.
The other items on here are related to development-related activities, some minor adjustments to more fully capture what those are, and then also providing explicitly an opportunity to delegate some of or a portion of those duties if we're in the event we were going to hire a director of planning and buildings. So if we're to hire a director, I would imagine that some of the duties Aaron would be, that just clarifies that point. Those other roles are already listed in other places in the ordinance, and that's just, and describes the role of the creation of development agreements related to development-related activity. And in the miscellaneous, basically is somewhat of a catch to make sure that anything that's reasonably implied from these responsibilities, I have the ability to go in there and do. That way I don't have to come back to council.
Okay, so we are okaying this to go to 3,000 instead of 1,000. Did we already do that?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I missed that change. So under previous ordinances, the purchasing authority was 3,000, and the 2018 update to this ordinance and our purchasing policy, that approval amount was reduced to 1,000. My request is the city council consider going back to a $3,000 purchasing authority by the city administrator. I mean, there's very little that I could purchase with $1,000 other than office supplies.
As long as it's reported in the next administrative report. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's kind of necessary.
That's already in the policy manual, isn't it?
Is it that it is 3,000 right now?
Yeah.
That manual will have to be changed. No, the manual is,
Is it?
there's something that happens at 1,000 and something that happens at 3.
In the green.
Some of it is related to the getting informal quotes and
between
informal,
1 and 3.
yeah. Between 1 and 3, you have to get 3 informal quotes. Above $3,000 in expenditure, it's formal quotes from
Above?
bids. And so,
It usually didn't it used to be 5,000?
I don't think so. The 5 comes in at 50,000. 50,000 is at that point, it's when the state law purchasing policy starts to.
Okay, all right.
There is, I like the procurement part, but there's other aspects of running the city, say like if someone, a mayor or someone decides to, let's get a study about parking, or let's let somebody draw up some designs or whatever, and that costs a certain amount of money. Who would then thus decide about those types of things? Say, this is all about supplies and equipment and those. But I'm talking about drawing up of, say, plans or engineered designs that cost a certain amount of money.
Right here. This group, this table.
Based on a certain thresholds of money, or?
Based on the fact that you are the elected body of this city that makes those decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
But under 3,000, I mean.
Yeah, I can adjust this to make sure it's not just equipment, and it also includes services.
Yeah.
Because there was.
You know, if there's an emergency pothole that needs to be filled and it costs, $3,000, I want them to be
The
able
whole idea is that you want to draft an ordinance that gives a capable and competent administrator in good faith the ability to carry out the expressed provided wishes and desires of the council. So if there's something that needs to be done consistent with the city's code of ordinances, consistent with the resolution that the city council has passed, this ordinance is designed and intended to ensure that this council and future councils' desires are followed through with. From a very large 30,000 foot perspective policy standpoint, the mayor is the chief executive officer of the city and has the duty to ensure that the code of ordinances should be followed. If something's not being followed, the mayor can always step in. If there's a big policy consideration, if it comes back to this council, or if this council or any future council sees that something is happening that ought to be happening, this council can vote to change the rules and fix things.
Okay.
That always exists. So the reason that it's good to be broad and not specific is the more granular you get, the more you're trying to code things out, and you're acting in a very reactionary manner. You don't want to be reactionary in drafting these ordinances. You want to ensure that you're vesting authority in people to do their jobs and do them well. If mistakes happen with Jared or Sylvia or Dwayne or myself moving forward, this body can bring it up and come up with a policy to address it.
Well, he added and services, so that's good.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all I got.
Looks good to me.
That's it.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Jared. Okay, we're going to move on to 5B, discussion regarding land use and tubing related parking lot near 1115 Northwest River Road.
Yeah, we'll pull up a map so we're all tracking what we're talking about here.
This would be a good time for you, y'all can interface with us now. You can talk, y'all can communicate with us, both ways, so we can have a conversation. It's not just public
We
comment,
can open it up, question, but
these are the folks that brought the issue up, one of them.
So this land
So-
is in a mixed use.
Yeah, so where we're talking
I thought
about
it was in commercial.
Mixed use.
mixed use, so it's zone mixed use.
Oh.
The area that we're discussing is this area here. Now, the owner of that property, began to engage in a tubing related business. A tubing related business per our zoning ordinances requires specific site standards and requirements, including a specific use permit and other things. We alerted.
She does not have.
Which he doesn't have. So we provided him a notice that if he continued to operate a parking lot at that facility, that he would be considered a tubing related business and subject to a fine. I think it was about $500 a day that he would, if he continued to do that. He's since stopped. So that parking has ended. He's made applications to the city on future development. However, those applications have not been complete or accepted to this point, and so that's why they have not been presented to city council. I will tell you that it's envisioned to be, at least currently, a commercial use space, likely with food trucks and maybe a small entertainment venue and different items, which has there's a lot of hoops that would have to go through before it would be approved, including a certificate of appropriateness with the distinct corridor that's subject to a public hearing and other items that would include the ability for the public to weigh in on that proposed land use. That hasn't happened yet because we've yet to see a suitable application that meets the requirements that are set out in the ordinances. And so from this point on, there's nothing that is on the table for the city council to decide on this. But for your awareness, we have received applications. They've been incomplete. We haven't processed them any further.
Oh, they were sent back to the.
Yeah, the requester.
The property.
You mentioned food trucks and entertainment. Now, is that something that is in conjunction with having the parking for the tubing, or is that something outside of that, or?
Completely different from the tubing. Now, it's likely intended to attract a certain demographic, but
It's not like something to say.
it's not a tubing related business.
He's not trying to get business, say, from tubers that park there to go to the food trucks and be entertained as they're there on the weekend.
Some of
parking.
the reasons why the application has been denied to this point is because they're in the zoning ordinances relating to restaurants or different business activities. There are certain numbers of parking spaces required and certain setbacks and set site plans. We have yet to have seen any of that, so it's hard to say. It stands to reason that that could be the case, but I don't want to have a discussion about a bunch of hypotheticals when we haven't received an application.
No, I was just curious.
I
Do we have a definition of a parking lot in our supplemental use table?
So we do not define a parking lot as a land use in its own right. What we do define is a tubing related business, and that's inclusive of facilitating the transportation of a tubing. And so parking, picking up from, transporting to, those items fall under the tubing related business, which requires specific use permits, public hearing, and notification of nearby residents. And so the likelihood that has not happened, the application for that has not been made. That's why it has not.
But also, I think like with that, it's why we always need to just refer and go back to, what we have for zoning. Because like that should have, no, there's no parking that's allowed there because here it is in our books. It clearly states what it is. Another thing that I wanted to say, I think that whenever whenever they were talking, or you're talking about like the food, whatever he wanted to do there as far as event, there needs to be like a traffic study. There needs to be, like the drainage ditches, there needs to be the paved. There's so many things that,
Ponds, yeah.
yes, that goes into it that we do have already, that's defined, but so I just think we shouldn't entertain it if it's not, even feasibly possible, or like you said, it's not complete in the
The
application.
application has not been complete to this point.
I'm just gonna add one point. This is somewhat similar what happened at Float Fest. They're trying to get a mass gathering entertainment permit from the county on Skulls Road. And
Guadalupe County.
Yeah, Guadalupe County. And one of the main reasons that the permit was denied is ingress and egress. EMS, they could not, they would block the road. People could not get to their houses at Cottonseed Run. They said they were having an alternative route, and that was the main reason the permit was denied. So that's another issue, down the road, whatever he does, it's gonna be ingress and egress, traffic, like you said, traffic studies. When you exit on 80, out of 80, on
Turn lane.
turn lane.
Shipping related businesses have to ingress egress from Highway 80. And that's that's another one of the items that he was violating.
But like, as we've said, I mean, TxDOT has its own regulations about how many driveways it can exist on a highway, how much distance you can have between two driveways, say you can only have one every 500 feet or whatever. So you can't anticipate having a bunch of driveways coming in and out onto 80, because then as the cars are coming really fast, there's always going to be cars pulling in front of them. So it seems like what I've seen is that in the parking that I've seen that has existed, that he is taking more advantage of the ingress and egress on Northwest River Road.
That's true. Yeah.
And
He was during that period that he was operating a unauthorized touring related business.
now, wasn't there some buses going through the parking lot of the Pack and Sack as well?
It might be.
We had asked you question, my question for you, at any time did the buses stop on Northwest River Road and block traffic?
Yes.
That's ingress and egress right there. If you're blocking and flow traffic.
For the people along.
Yeah, so that,
They pulled off halfway off onto the grassy part off of the road.
but they were still,
That's right.
they were
They were
still
on the
still
road
blocking
that
like it dropped.
road, yeah, that cars couldn't.
Well, how long did they block traffic? Do you know, was it to unload?
Wasn't real long, because it was like letting people off or picking people off, out there.
But they-
Mostly it was letting people off.
But they were blocking access, they were blocking the
Yes.
road. Okay.
Let's go off, that's still pretty.
This is your time to talk. I mean, y'all can interface
Yeah.
with us. Go ahead.
So they were letting people in and out, so there was
All the
problems
access,
with,
all the access was only on River Road,
Pretty much.
no Highway 80 access at all. Still, there was no Highway 80 access of any sort. So the buses were going through Sack and Pack, make a turnaround. And,
Explain,
we ever get complaints from Second Pack?
explain what happened, what they did at Second Pack, where they would turn off of 80 into the Second Pack park.
They
They
do it
circle
that
around
way.
the parking lot because they missed a couple of people or something. So they go through the Mexican restaurant, back up the highway, back around through the Second Pack. And pick
Did
people
they
up,
have-
vice versa, you know?
Huh.
Did those owners have any complaints? Do you know of? Did those people complain?
I didn't hear.
It all
anything.
happened so fast and we weren't expecting any of it. So
We didn't know, we were caught
we had
totally off
no
guard,
previous
but
warning.
we
It
would have
just,
taken pictures.
there they are. And like, what's going on? You know?
Okay.
And we'll get a few pictures. In the future, I'll get a lot more, but I just,
Well, it looks like they're not
taking
allowed
back
to do
that
it.
it's Taking place at all was, there's really no preparation. He did mow the weeds down and take the trees down, but other than that.
Have you noticed an improvement since they've,
They
What do
started.
you mean?
I mean, they've stopped doing it, so
Oh,
it's
yeah,
definitely improved.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, my concern partially was because I have sinuses and, you know, I'm already getting all the dust and the dirt from the county road. That's, what is that road called?
Spring River.
Spring River.
Yeah, that's where Texas State too, that's where they,
And I get so much dust that way, and now this is just grass. In a short period of time, I was thinking, that's gonna be dust and dirt too, right in front of my house. I was concerned
Well-
about that, because everybody that, the first time they did it, and in fairness to the individual that owns the property, I don't even know if he knew that they were doing this. It was June 26th, and that whole parking space was jammed packed. And it was like, it was total chaos. I mean, the cars were parked every which way. I don't even know how they cleared after dark, how they got everybody out and nobody had an accident. It was a mess. Now, the other 2 or 3 times, it was like only half full and it wasn't so chaotic. But the first time they did it on the 26th of June, it was awful.
well, like I said, I was at that hearing at the county commissioner's court, and that's when that judge shut them down. And the most important thing were public comment and photographs, and documentation. And the judge listened and they did the right thing.
So on this, in this case, the city has pretty well defined ordinances relating to tubing related businesses that they did not comply with. And so if that person or anybody else decides to operate a tubing related business without following our code of ordinances, they'll similarly get a warning and that they're going to get a violation. If they proceed, they're pretty substantial fines.
Okay.
So like in the future, if they ever see anything like that going on again, I had just recommended to them that they could call it in at a non-emergency, number for just the traffic hazard that it's building, that's building up. I gave them our code of ordinances and also, what it states, so they would be able to refer to that. But is that what you would suggest that they do?
Yeah, you can definitely do that. You can definitely reach out to the non-emergency dispatch. Now, county sheriff office, if they're the responding law enforcement agency, they're not going to know our ordinances or enforce our ordinances necessarily. But what they can do is take the report, document the complaint, and then our police office would do the investigation and handle it from there. If there's also on our city website a report and issue form that you can submit online, and it goes directly to myself, the mayor's inbox immediately, and we'll be aware of it. And we can address that with our.
But if they don't have access to a computer, they can come in and fill out the form.
They can come in and fill out the form as well.
So mostly what I think, and they could possibly clarify, so when people come and park there, they're getting picked up by the bus and then taken upstream and then go into the river and then they float down and then the bus picks them up at the site on the river.
We
and
don't
then-
No, what
We don't know.
What happened? I'll tell you what happened. I know this outfit very well.
Okay.
I've been dealing with these people for 7 years. They put in an Alan Cummings property. So what they do is they park their car at Alan Cummings property at Westerfield Crossing to put in. They float down, they take a bus and they get a ride back up to their cars. What happened is that it was so many people that there was no room to park any vehicles at Alan Cummings property.
Would that be the cleared field right there where you're saying?
No, that's towards Pecan Park, Old Bastrop Highway.
Park up there.
They park up there. So whereas Texas 2, Don's, they park their car at Don's and then they shuttle them up and they float down to their car. So it's totally opposite.
This is basically an overflow parking lot.
Overflow, exactly.
That we operate.
For
Don, Texas 2 and Don?
No, just Texas State 2.
Texas too, yeah, Texas State.
Because Alan Cummings didn't have enough room to park all those vehicles. That's why they did it. It's an
So
overflow.
they park there, get in the bus and
They
go
were.
upstream.
They were. They're not anymore.
Yeah.
They were.
We're doing that.
It was just a,
Overflow because of the
Yeah,
July
that's-
4th weekend.
Oh.
Just prior to.
Yeah, just prior to. Business was so good, so.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes you gotta limit,
Okay, see, there's,
they got limitations, they need to.
so I just want to say, we want to listen to you, and that way I'd like to have it as an agenda item. Therefore, y'all can discuss with us, I think when we can be more proactive with you guys,
So I
so.
have to admit, it was so chaotic for them. They had no control over the situation whatsoever. Parking, people, the buses, they had no access, and they still have no access. Consequently, they're really not planning ahead, never did, and they never foresaw anything.
You ought to see them on the river. That's nothing compared to the river. You want to see a show, go down to the river and you'll see a show.
Concern of mine too is, I live right there, I hear all the sirens.
Yeah.
But every day they were open, there was 4 sirens running out there. There was the buses, the trucks, ambulance and so forth. And there's no on-ramp, no off-ramp, there's nothing to get into that property or around that property. And they're flying through that area to go generally down to that tubing company area. So they always have a problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Just generally speaking, for council's application, when there is a continuous violation of any portion of the code of ordinances, that is where I can be most helpful in correcting that.
It is the case in that case.
Yeah.
When that happens, it does not normally follow the process of a citation going through the.
Okay, on future items,
I think she said she's going to say something in closing.
oh, I'm sorry.
Can I ask, in the future, if something comes up, will we be notified like we were like with the, his fences on both sides?
Yes.
Because like Donnie thought the day that awful day, when cars started coming, he thought it was part of like the graveyard across the road. There was a funeral or something going on.
Well-
It was so many people, they had parking. That's what he thought at first. I mean, we didn't know.
That weekend, he did that without any kind of authorization.
It did the fences?
No.
Oh, no.
So if,
Okay, yeah.
in the future, if there is an application to develop that land, it will go through at a minimum this scenic corridor certificate of appropriateness application process, which results in a public notice being sent out. For any zoning related issue, often is the case, and I believe the case is the same here, a mailer is sent, a letter is sent to each of the property owners within 200 feet of that property line. And so you guys would receive a similar notice when that happens.
That'd be great.
Thank you.
So it gives us opportunity to respond.
Yes.
And there'd be a public hearing,
Yes.
like we had earlier for the Red Barn
Right.
Cafe. Similar.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, on number 6, on future items, does anyone have anything to add to that list?
Anything we want to remove?
looks pretty full to me.
What do you want to remove?
I don't know if the grant advisory commission is.
Yeah, you could, you know what?
What is that? The which one?
Yeah,
The
that's, I
grant
guess I'm the grant advisory committee here, the sole person. I would take, if you want to take that off, I'd have.
Oh, number 5, okay.
Yeah, you want to take it off. There's not much interest.
I would say also number 4.
That's already been on there for a while.
No, I would like to know the history of that and why there's no parking signs there that did not go through city council.
For,
Those no parking signs, most of them, I don't know if it's all,
Now,
but most of them.
Maybe we need to leave that on there. If there's a discussion, then maybe we need to leave
Okay.
that on there.
You mean the signs that are on the periphery of the parking lot along Northwest Road?
When did those go up and shouldn't that have gone through city council?
Well, it's in the ordinance. We discussed the parking ordinance at one city council meeting. And all along Northwest River Road, there's not supposed to be parking. But we probably need to get back. Yeah, remember we discussed that? And there was no,
1984 ordinance that may need to be, that's on our list to be updated.
I wanted to just make a general, just a statement, because I know that Mr. Latimer left, and no way did my comment earlier reflect anything about his situation that happened. I know that's real, and I am so sorry for what happened to him, but in no way was my comment stated towards him. And if he took it in such a manner, then I apologize for that, but that was not directed towards him or his situation. And I wanted to just let that be known before the council, Zoom, and everybody that's here.
Real quick on that, on the billboard didn't we talk about not doing the billboard? Or
Oh, this was to discuss what we want to do instead.
can we change that? Do we want to just change that or just keep it?
You know what, we might be able to roll that in to the hotel motel tax workshop discussion.
What about, I know you had someone on city staff start to compile codes and ordinances of abandoned vehicles, buildings, and buildings that are dilapidated and sundry, and notice was possibly going to go out or that we were going to proceed with that. I don't see anything in the future items pertaining to that.
I can include that in my administrator's report from next month.
Because there has been several comments made about such is that about certain homes that need to be looked at in terms of enforcement of those types of things.
Yeah.
and some of the ordinance, some of those that we sent out, the people have complied.
Oh, you already
They
have?
did, when Pamela was here, they did send some out.
Did y'all want to you want to give an update on Mr. Smith? Do y'all want to hear an update on that situation, on that Cochran property?
Yeah,
I don't know if we need to, I think as a future agenda item, we're welcome.
I mean, far as just what I've done at this point, do you want to?
That's not on our agenda for today.
Hush up.
That'd be my recommendation.
All right, we can't. It's out of order.
What is this automobile parking in the city limits? That's the first time I think I've seen it.
Oh, that's the 1984 thereabouts ordinance that we've briefly discussed that needs to
yeah.
be updated and codified.
Mhm. You know, also maybe other items such as recreational vehicles, boats, you know, on parking on city property too.
On city property,
I mean, not on city property, within the city limits.
like the storage of those things.
Yeah.
That might be a zoning, depending on what it is. Why don't we?
Okay, okay, fine.
Which one was that, Sam?
It just says here automobile parking in city limits, but we have other things like boats, say, that are parked on the street in
yeah.
the city limits. So
Okay.
I didn't know if we could include boats. So-
Where, on the, so that's just part of it.
Okay,
That's it.
So what's this 1984 thing?
There was an ordinance that was passed in 1984 that restricted parking along Northwest River Road,
Oh, okay.
on the left side of the street. It's not, so if it's not in your driveway, it's not allowed, kind of thing. When we briefly reviewed that, our city attorney made a mention that some of the enforcement language might need to be updated, since that ordinance is 30 plus years, 36 years old.
And so I saw the golf cart ordinance is off. So
It's on.
there?
it's on there.
Okay,
Number 2.
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay, because I was gonna say, I mean, I don't know if y'all as a council want to pursue that, or y'all good with how it is, or, I mean, it's up to,
It
It's on future.
okay. So that's a keeper. Okay.
Okay. Is there anything else to add? Okay, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting
I second that.
At
25.
8:25. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, the motion carries.